Hello and welcome. My name is Smita Joshi. I'm joined today by someone who gives his life to taking spiritual wisdom from ancient India to institutions such as the World Parliament of Religions and universities like Oxford and Cambridge in England, George Washington and Maryland in America. He's the founder of the Bhagavad Vani Trust and the Gaudiya Vaishnava Association. The conversation that I'm about to have with him is about how we can take these ancient teachings and use them to illumine our daily lives and live them with more ease and grace. The person I'm about to talk to is His Divine Grace, Swami Tirtha Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining us today, Swamiji. Would it be correct to say that the philosophy that you follow is based on the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita?
Yes, of course. And also I will add Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yes.
It's called Bhagavat Mahapurana.
Mm-hmm.
These two are the foundational scriptures for our philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Gita was originally known in olden days as Gita Upanishad because it constitutes the preliminary study of the entire body of Vedic teachings. And it's the essence of all the Vedic knowledge spoken directly by God Himself. So we say it's a conversation between the living entity of this planet with God directly. And therefore those conclusions of the teachings contained in Gita considered very authentic, and that forms the basis for our philosophy.
Very good. And I've heard you use the term previously, Krishna Consciousness.
Yeah.
Can you please share with us what that actually means?
See, actually, consciousness, the generic meaning is awareness or knowledge, isn't it? So Krishna consciousness means awareness of our relationship with Him. God says in Gita, Mamaivamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. Every living being of this world is a fragmented portion of Krishna Himself. Therefore, we have an eternal relationship with Him. One who is aware of this and leads a life based on that understanding can be called a Krishna conscious person. And because every living entity is the fragmental part of the Lord, we consider our duty to inform the entire masses of the whole world about that eternal relationship with God. Right now we have forgotten that relationship and we are trying to revive that knowledge.
So in the Gita, when Lord Krishna shows Himself to Arjuna in His vibrant, full form, is He not showing us the greatness of our own true inner nature then, or true nature, not even inner nature, just our nature, as opposed to, let's say, so our highest potential? So then, as opposed to God or Krishna being someone who is idolized as separate from us, are we simply not saying that what you mean by Krishna consciousness is the highest potential within each and every human being?
No, because right, first of all, when you say the vibrant form He showed, perhaps you are meaning that universal form which He showed to Arjuna. But that is not His actual form. That is the manifestation of the material feature of the Lord. In fact, He wants to convey to the entire humanity that everything comes from Him. The shloka is, Aham sarvasya prabhavaha, mattaha sarvam pravartate. Means I am the origin of all the things that you see in this world, and everything emanates from me. So to show this, He showed that form. Actually, His real vibrant form is the two-handed form of Krishna, human-like form. And the second thing is, yes, He wants us to idolize Him. That's why He says, knowing that I am the origin of all these emanations, iti matva, having understood, buddhaha, intelligent person, mam bhajanti, they adore me, they worship me. So it's the intelligent ones who have developed, cultivated the Krishna consciousness. They understand his supremacy and therefore they idolize him. So he's not that we have that potential that we can become Krishna. No, not like that.
But then what is it that we are then? Because if we idolize something outside of ourselves,
yes,
then who are we? Why are we idolizing this? Is it not to, surely not to realize an aspect of our own self?
No. That's why it's very clear. It's like a master and servant relationship. See, he is the whole and we are the part. So the duty of the part is to serve the whole. So they are two separate entities, both the living entity, the individual living beings of this world, and Krishna. Both are conscious living entities. He is the Supreme Lord, the Master, and we are his servants.
But then where is he?
He is in his spiritual abode.
Where is that?
It's outside this cosmos. You see, that's what we should understand. There are two realms of realities. One is the mundane, the material, another one the spiritual. Mm-hmm. His abode is in the spiritual. Okay. He eternally stays there. And in fact, we also belong to that place. That's why here nobody can be happy. The reason is, mm-hmm. just like if you take a fish out of water, put it on the land, it struggles for some time and then dies.
So why are we here then?
We are here because we have the propensity to enjoy independent of God. In other words, we want the kingdom of God minus God. And the Lord knows that we can really be happy only in his association. We are now estranged from him.
So are you saying then that we can live here as human beings and we can be happier if somehow we are able to connect with Lord Krishna?
That's right, you got it. Okay. You got it.
So how does that work then? How do you do that?
So that's what I'm saying, we have to revive that knowledge. So for that only he says, you man mana bhava, absorb your mind in me.
And what does that mean?
When you work for Krishna, mm-hmm. you see, actually, because of our connection with him, it's not an ordinary connection, it's the loving connection.
Yes.
So God is the essence of love. So we actually will become satisfied. The living being here can become satisfied only when he learns to love the supreme objective of love.
So then is the access to moving in that direction the energy of love in any of its, let's say, human forms to begin with? Because if Krishna is love and we are a fragment of him, therefore is the bridge to Krishna the ability to love here
yes.
and now.
Yes.
So then you experience the essence of,
exactly.
of Krishna.
Yeah.
Okay, got that. So that's what it means by identify. Okay, let me ask you the question. Is that when the Gita talks about identifying with the higher self?
Right.
Is that what it means? I mean, is love the access to experiencing the higher self in palpable ways? Because I'm interested in how can we take this from being an abstract philosophy, something that, got born maybe 5,000 years ago or more, but making it
practical.
Right now practical so that mine, yours, people who are watching, everybody's lives
right.
is touched by that, and it, in a palpable way, they experience more ease and grace.
Yes. For that, you see, actually when he says higher self, it is understood that it's a lower self. Actually, what we call it is a real self and false self. Again, it's called ego, a real ego and the false ego. Body is the false ego. When you say, I am this body, I am this, when you show yourself the body, that is lower self, inferior self. The real ego or the higher self is inside you. That is the Atma, spirit soul. That spirit soul is the part and parcel of the supreme spirit soul, Krishna. I'm coming to the point which you raised, palpable. So we have got to, first of all, even if you are not able to perceive, theoretically admit we are the spirit soul and not this body. For example, in everyday life, we say my hands, my legs, my eyes, my ears, everything my. That even, when you are sick, go to a doctor, when you feel the pulse, what's the problem? He said, my whole body is paining. If the whole body is belongs to you, then who are you? This question comes. That means this body is other than you. The whole body belongs to you. So that you is inside you. This is number one. Number two, from this you can understand, I am not the body. It belongs to me. Secondly, you say, somebody, when you are morose, somebody asks you, how are you doing? No, my mind is not okay today. I am not in a good mood. So the mind is also my. It is not you. Then when you commit a mistake, you say, you are an intelligent girl, how did you? No, my intelligence was not working that day. So the intelligence also here, not you. So the body, the mind, the intelligence. All the three belong to you. And who is that you? That you is different from these three. That is inside you, inside the body. That's called Atma. Now this understanding has to be brought over. If you cannot get this understanding, then all your questions will be useless.
Okay, let's accept that we have,
theoretically at least.
Let's accept that we are the Atma.
Right.
The Atma or the Atman?
Atma.
Atma. We are Atma.
Spirit soul. Yeah.
Soul. Okay, spirit soul. Now, so what then? I have this human body. I have this human life. I also have this Atma,
right.
And
I am the Atma. I am the Atma, not I have this Atma.
Okay, I am the Atma. Okay, I'm also the Atma then. And yet, as you say, we have forgotten
our relationship.
Our relationship with it,
right.
with the Atman.
Right.
So how do we practically begin to weave it in? Because, I need to earn money. People that are watching this, everybody needs to go out to work. They have children, they have husbands, but people can't be monks. Most people can't,
Yes, yeah.
And neither in today's world should they, in my opinion, should they be, why are we not able to bring these two together?
Right.
Are we not at that level of consciousness now that we can do that?
Right.
How do you do it?
For that you start with the hearing and chanting. See, when you hear about somebody constantly, you think of that somebody. Or when you talk about that somebody, you continuously remember that somebody. Normally a young mother talks about her son or daughter, the baby, all the time.
Yes.
So she is child conscious. So if you start hearing about Krishna and glorifying him, gradually that knowledge will be revived. This knowledge cannot be acquired forcefully. It is the Lord himself will bestow his mercy, then only you can understand this. This cannot be understood, or whether you call it practical way or impractical way, it cannot be understood by our attempt. We can make attempt, but that attempt has to be supported by the Lord himself.
So grace, we have to invoke his grace somehow.
Yeah.
Okay, but we're still talking in three parts. We're talking about the body, the ego in the body. Right. We're talking about the Atma, and we're talking about Krishna.
Right.
Or God,
right.
whoever, whatever God you believe in.
Exactly.
Okay. What happens, is it a question of belief, or what happens if you don't believe in God? It still exists, no?
Yeah, that's true. That's what the whole point is. You see, for example, you have not seen electron. Nobody has seen electron, but still we believe in electron. And all the electronic equipment, electronic engineers, they're all talking about electron. They have not seen electron. Similarly, you may not be able to see God in today's mundane situation. As I said, it's a different realm. So unless the whole body is spiritualized, and the spiritualization takes place only when you start serving him.
Have you seen God?
Yes, I'm seeing everywhere. That is Krishna.
How does he look? She. How does she look?
It's not she.
Why?
It's because he himself.
Is it an it?
No.
It's a he.
No, he himself says that.
Okay.
He says, "Atosmi lokecha vedecha patita purushottama." In Gita he says, I am Purushottama, means supreme male. So therefore, the ultimate reality is a person, number one. The problem with us is that today's world, nobody is able to have faith in God that is a person. Mostly people think is impersonal. You know, especially educated people, when I ask them, what's your concept of God? He says, well, I believe in some supreme power. I said, no, it's not power. It's powerful person. Somewhere you have also raised this question, energy.
Yeah, it's an energy form.
Yeah, no, it's not energy, it's energetic.
Energetic.
You see, for example, the electricity you have here is energy. But the energy doesn't hang loose in the sky. It has a source, powerhouse. From powerhouse, the energy comes. Similarly, energy is subordinate to the energetic. So technically in Bhagavad Gita itself, the Lord explains, I am the supreme male, I have Prakriti, energy. So energy and energetic, it's one and the same, but the energy you can see of this energetic when that person performs an action. For example, I am an energetic person, but now you don't see the energy in me. But when I lift a luggage item of 20 kgs, you can see that I have applied 20 kg worth of power to hold it in position.
Okay.
That means the energy I have applied, but I am an energetic person. So similarly, Krishna is energetic and he has energies and he has multifarious energies. The Upanishads say, Parasya Shakti Vividhaihi Shuyate. Vividha means many. He has got multifarious energies and he is energetic. And the ultimate reality is a person. And you see, like, why we are not able to believe in this fact that God can be a person? Many people don't believe in it. See, it's common sense tells us. If you visit a exhibition of paintings, a particular painting attracts your attention and you go closer to it. Why do you go closer to it? Because you want to see who is the painter. If the painting is there, actually when you admire a painting, you are actually admiring the painter. And the painter has to be a sentient being, creator. Anything created by a creator, the creator has to be a sentient being. Even if you take in our normal life, if the child is there, father must exist. Father must have died, he may not have seen the father. But the father was there. Anything created, creator must exist. When you see a beautiful building, the architect is a sentient being. So what is the difficulty in accepting this fact? That there is a creator, must be there because something has been created. It is as simple as that.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to go to break now and then we'll continue the conversation.
Oh, sure.
Swamiji, let's talk about producing results without being attached to them. The Gita talks a great deal about the necessity to do your dharma, that is to serve your life purpose and to do your duty as a son or as a wife or as a daughter and so on. And it talks about doing your karma or work, but without being attached to the fruits of your action. So most people find this very difficult. Today we live in a world where we are totally results driven, and the more results you produce, the more successful you're considered to be. So, you know, there is this dilemma where we can't avoid results. I'm sure even you have to produce results in the work that you're doing. You know, people have to like what you're saying or somehow, you know, listen. There's a certain, you know, there's a certain action that has to take place from all of us, and then that needs to result in something. So what is the access to being able to do your work and not be attached to the fruits of your actions, i.e. results, and especially to still be engaged in the world, to be non-attached without becoming indifferent or being a victim to your consciousness? I'm sorry, victim to your circumstances. Apologies.
That's all. I got your point. You see, what we have to understand here is, Krishna himself says in Gita, Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya adhyatma chetasa. Adhyatma chetasa means spiritual understanding. That's why we began with that background. Even the Gita discourse started in the second chapter. to drive home the point to Arjuna is not merely the body. So Adhyatma Chetasa means unless you are convinced of your spiritual existence as your essential existence, not the bodily existence, you cannot really avoid looking for results. Results will come. Whenever you perform an action, results will come. So all that he says is, you perform the duty as it has to be done. But that is possible only when you are convinced that you are not the body first. For example, I am giving you how to understand this. See, if you buy a medicine from a pharmacy, there is an outer carton, a package, and there's a bottle inside. And inside the bottle there is a capsule. So the outer carton is not the medicine, the bottle is not the medicine, the capsule is the medicine. Similarly, this gross body is not me. Inside this, there's a subtle body consisting of mind and intelligence. That is also not me. Inside that, there's a spirit soul. That is the real me. If this can be convinced, if you are convinced of this, then all these things start. For example, I have also been in my material platform. I was holding an executive position. But when I was convinced of this, I gave up that and took to this.
Is it necessary to give everything up in the world? Because it's a very beautiful planet we live on.
Very tempting. In fact, seductive. But you can begin with what's called social activism. You can do public welfare activities to start with, without material motive. Then gradually rise to the platform of Krishna consciousness. That is how it will work.
So once you are, what you're saying is that once you can accept that you have the Atma, that you are the Atma rather,
right,
that you are the Atma, then you're saying that producing results becomes easier. Why is that? Because what happens at that point?
Getting detached with the results is easier.
Getting detached from the results. So you can still do what you're doing, but you're not so attached to how what you're doing will turn out.
Yes.
Right.
Because you are related to the Lord.
Right.
To satisfy me is more important.
Right.
That you will realize only when you realize you are Atma.
Okay.
Unless that realization does not take place,
yes,
you will have attachment to body, bodily actions, and the results that actions produce.
And at the same time, it has been said that the body is a temple, because without having a healthy body, we can't realize the Atma. We cannot be connected. We can't do the things that we need to do to take ourselves towards a higher consciousness.
Right, that is true. But then the body has to be engaged in that direction. But normally we don't. Although we technically speak like this, we engage the body in enjoyment, bodily enjoyment, like pigs and dogs. You see, the Shastras say, Ahara Nidra Bhayamai Thunancha. Ahara eating, Nidra sleeping, Bhaya fearing, consequently resorting to self-defense, and Maithuna mating. Eating, sleeping, defending, mating. These four functions are common to human beings, animals and the birds. Got my point?
Yes.
These four functions can be performed by dogs, cats, elephants, snakes, man and woman. Now as long as you perform, you confine yourself to performing these four basic functions, actually we are on the animal level. So you may have this information that the body is the temple, but you don't treat it as a temple. You are engaging this body the way the animals engage their bodies, eating and mating.
Right. So so I think what I'm hearing you say, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that the context inside of which you take the action is critical.
Yes.
the context.
Yes.
So how you define why you're doing something. First of all, you need to get conscious about why you're doing something.
Right.
And then from that place, so then how you perform that action could be different. How you conduct yourself may actually change. So it's really about conscious. It's about becoming conscious.
Yes,
is what you're saying.
add a little to that. That you should, Krishna says in Gita, yat karoshi, yat jihoshi, yat ashnasi, yat tapasyasi, kaunteya. Kurushva madarpanam. You perform all your actions as an offering to me. So when you start performing actions from tomorrow, right from the morning, if you say, Krishna, I am offering today's action to you, then you will be guided properly. And then you will never do anything wrong. And the results you are going to give to the Lord, right or wrong, good or bad. So that kind of approach one must cultivate. That whatever I am going to do from today, right now, I'm doing this as an offering to the Lord because I'm eternally related to Him. This consciousness, if one can cultivate, and then he himself offers a solution. First he says, fix your mind on me. Then he says, if you cannot do that, practice that, fixing mind on. Then he says, if you cannot do that, then work for me. Then he says, if you cannot do that, then whatever you earn, give up those results in my service.
Understand. Can you please tell me the Sanskrit word for that sacrifice? We call it, is that tyag?
Yes.
Is that what you do?
No, tyag, but that is, you see, there are two things, bhog and tyag, enjoyment and renunciation. But both will not make you happy. That tyaga, that renunciation, should be for the pleasure of Krishna. Then you get, for example, Bill Gates, the richest man in the world, and Warren Buffett, the second richest man. They are donating $100 million to, technology park and this, that, AIDS, etc. Now you imagine, to earn that $100 million in the youth, how much they must have struggled, isn't it?
Yes.
And even Warren Buffett, at the age of 73, he gave this $100 million to something. That means, while earning, they thought they will be happy by accumulating money. No, that has become a burden. They may not admit. And they think I can become happy by getting that burden off. No, there also they will not. But when they engage that, whatever wealth they have, in the service of Krishna, the God, then gradually they will realize happiness. And spiritually also they will progress. It is for anyone, those two gentlemen, only example I gave you.
Yes.
Any rich man today, here or anywhere, any part of the world.
Or perhaps not even rich, just any person.
Any XYZ.
I think what I'm hearing you say is that simply by becoming more conscious of why one is doing something, what the purpose behind that is, regardless of whether you believe in God, whether you believe in Krishna, whether you believe or not, that simply by becoming more conscious and taking more conscious action and, taking action from a place where you know why you're doing something, and you're not attached to the results. In any way, you can be giving it.
No, but the problem is,
as a sacrifice.
No, but the problem is, you cannot become detached to the result unless you become God conscious. That means your work should be offered to Krishna, to the God. Then only it will help you to detach from the results. The purpose of every action of yours should be to offer it to the Lord. Then only it is possible. Right. That's why most of us find it difficult to become detached from the results. You see, as I said, unless you cultivate Krishna consciousness, God consciousness, and realize that you are eternally related to Him, then all your actions will be to satisfy Him. I'll just add one more thing before concluding this. He says, Macchittaha sarvadurgani mat prasadat tarishyasi. He tells Arjuna, Macchittaha. Chitta means consciousness. Mat means me conscious. That is Krishna conscious. If you become Krishna conscious and perform your action, sarva durgani. Durgani means problem, difficulties, impediments, bottlenecks. He says you will overcome all this mat prasada, by my mercy. See, you cannot overcome any problem, solve any problem without the help of Lord.
Okay.
So for that only he says, Machitta, become me conscious.
So in this very, very busy, stressed and demanding world that we're living in, you know, every day you're called on to deal with so many things at the same time, family work, financial commitments, social commitments, and so on. How can we be more effective in distinguishing between what is important and what is not, without becoming unrealistic? In worldly terms, I mean now, you know.
I see your point. So important is a relative term. One man's food is another man's poison. What is important to you is insignificant to me. So the really important thing is, Krishna points out in Gita, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. Birth, old age, disease and death. We become miserable because of these four. The importance is to be given to this, to avoid growing old, avoid getting diseased, to avoid death, and to avoid birth. This is important. Because you should know after death, where do you go? And because you take birth, now you are nice with flowing tresses, you are young, beautiful. But you will grow old. You will be forced to grow old. By simply dyeing my hair, I cannot look young. People will understand that. Similarly, the best of the doctors, highly paid, they also get diseased. And ultimately they will also die. So birth, old age, disease and death. To give attention to this is more important than any other work you have on this earth.
And yet there have been people who have risen to the status of Paramhans, you know, and they have died from disease and cancer. And we know Sri Ramakrishna, I think, was one of those, wasn't he? So how do you explain that?
No, you see, what happens is, saintly personalities, they don't identify with the body. So even if they have disease, they know that they are Atma. This is a passing phase. Even if he has a dog's body, the nature of the body is to contract disease. So they are not very much bothered about that, because they know their true self. Just like Sudama Brahmana was a very poor man. He was supposed to be Krishna's classmate and Krishna's devotee. So many people ask, he was so poor, in rags, didn't have 2 times meal. He was a great devotee. How is that he suffered? I said, you are a fool. Go and ask him. He was enjoying, he was happy. It's you, the observer, suffers. You see, he was not unhappy, he was happy because he knew he was Atma and Krishna's Paramatma. This body is merely a dress.
And yet one can say, could say that that's really easy to say, you know, you can shift your perspective any way you like, you know. So you can go into denial or you can shift your perspective. But the reality is that person lived in a body that was diseased, and yet they were completely committed to
the Lord,
the
Lord's service. So that's precisely where I'm coming to the point, is that it is a question of the platform. See, Arjuna was crying on the battlefield because he was speaking from the material platform. Krishna was smiling while addressing him because he was spiritually situated. So it's the platform from which you operate. If for an ordinary observer, Sudama Brahmana was suffering. But he himself knew that he was not suffering, he was happy. So one cannot come to that level unless he has realized that he is the atomic spirit soul, individual soul, and part and parcel of Krishna, the supreme spirit soul. That understanding, unless it comes, is very difficult.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Another question for you, Swamiji.
Yes.
So Lord Vishnu and his partner Goddess Lakshmi, and also Lord Krishna, are all about creating material, I'm going to say all about creating material comforts, because I know that people relate to them that way. When they want to create wealth, we pray to Lord
Yes.
Lord Vishnu or Goddess
Krishna,
Lakshmi,
yeah.
right? Or Krishna.
Right.
And yet, there often seems to be a disconnect between the so-called spiritual people and the domain of money and wealth.
Right.
Something like, for example, wealth is bad, or that if you're really spiritual, then you should not, have wealth because somehow it's vulgar. So can you please clear up that confusion around money, wealth, and being spiritual?
I think you have raised a very good question. I must appreciate you for that. Because normally the people think on these lines. That's done, well done. But actually, wealth is not bad. But the wealth that is not engaged in the service of God is bad. See, the wealth makes you greedy. And you want to make more and more wealth. So simply, as I said earlier, accumulating wealth, ultimately you will realize it does not make you happy. And then you want to get rid of wealth. And not in a proper way. You simply give donation. So therefore here it is said, even the spiritualists, like you must have heard, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada of ISKCON, Acharya. He lived here 11 years in the Western world. He collected 1,000 crore rupees. You see, he's a spiritualist, Krishna conscious person. And with that he built 108 temples all over the world. So he did not say collecting money was bad. But then he engaged the entire wealth asset in the service of Krishna. He did not start a steel mill or some cloth factory. No, he didn't do that. So therefore, the wealth that you accumulate merely for your enjoyment is bad. I'm giving you the idea. You see, one category is godless, sinful life. The other category is God-conscious, religious life. The third one is God-centered spiritual life. So the first two lives, godless, sinful life and God-conscious, religious life, both are material life. God-centered spiritual life is Krishna consciousness. In other words, first with the money the guys collect, they lead sinful life. Eat, dance, anything eat, anywhere you go, anywhere you stay. Go to the gambling dens, casinos, here also you are getting. Las Vegas, full of casinos, gamblings. All sinful actions are taking place. Everybody flies every weekend, enjoy there. This wealth which they are earning and spending there is bad. The next one is God-conscious religious life is the average pious man, especially in India, average pious Hindu. He goes to temples periodically. Why? Only to pray to God for material facilities and amenities here. He doesn't think that he has to go one day, leave everything and go. So that is lacking. That person also collects money, accumulates. Some percentage he spends for God. Maximum he leaves for his children. The ultimate, the final life is God-centered. That is Krishna-centered spiritual activity. There everything is offered to Krishna. Whatever you do. Even the money you earn. In other words, spiritual life is sense-controlled life. And only, believe me, honestly, you may be educated, uneducated, rich or poor, or socially famous or not famous. You cannot be happy in any way except when your senses are under control. So sense-controlled man is a spiritual man.
Thank you. It's a good point to stop for a few moments while we go to break. Okay, we're back now for a little bit more conversation, Swamiji.
Yeah.
So in the Gita, Lord Krishna tells us that we must live our lives according to a certain set of principles and values, which are predominantly founded in integrity.
Right.
But how can you stay true to those principles while others may be playing a completely different game by a different set of rules, such as greed and deceit? And without joining them, or how can you continue to maintain your principles, but without joining them, and without being squashed by them, and without becoming resentful?
Right, very, very well said. You see, when he says integrity, follow certain principles. he outlines that very well. He says, basically we have to become sinful, sinless people. Sinful actions must be stopped. This everyone can accept, you see. What are the sinful activities? 4 major sins have been identified in the Shastras. Dyutam, gambling. Panam, intoxicants. Striyaha, illicit sex. Suna, meat eating.
Meat eating.
Animal flesh eating. Now these 4 are considered as major sins, you see. Dyutam, gambling. Gambling, a person can stoop very low. And you don't have to go elsewhere to look at an example. He's our gentleman Yudhishthira of Mahabharata. He saw how low he went. Just to give us the lesson, he behaved that way. So gambling is bad, sin. Panam, intoxicants. You know, right from tea, coffee, tobacco, any form. Beer, whiskey, gin, wine, rum, brandy, drug. All intoxicants. And then suna. Suna means killing animal and eating their flesh. When Lord has given you nice grains, pulses, cereals, milk and milk products, which contain all nourishing elements like proteins and vitamins, why should we unnecessarily kill animal, eat flesh? That's why a Greek mathematician, Pythagoras, or we call it Pythagoras.
Pythagoras, yes.
That's always a problem for me between London and America. There I have to say fast, here I have to say fast. So somewhere it is Pythagoras, somewhere it is Pythagoras. He says, as long as men, that is human beings, kill animal to eat their flesh, they cannot help but killing each other. That's what you see today in the entire world. You see? So these 4 major sins, if you can stop, there is nothing wrong in doing all the other things with a normal sense of decency. So if you are in any one or all the 4 sins, then you cannot be happy. So therefore he said this set of principles, one has to follow.
I think that's, you know, having rules and guidelines as to what works and what doesn't work in a culture or in a group of people is necessary and normal. But the challenge is that aside of the things which we know that are obviously don't work, things like things that don't give you happiness in the end,
right,
because you can end up getting in trouble as a result of doing those actions. The thing is, I'm talking about the more subtle things, like when people behave in a certain way towards other people, causing them harm or upset or heartache, but they don't think that they've behaved in a bad way. People always think that their way is right. That isn't that the case with humanity? So people think, everyone thinks that they're right. We're talking about the subtleties of behavior now.
I know.
So how do you
the point is,
know who's right?
Yes, the point is that we are, our action, our thought, our speech are influenced, according to Gita, 3 modes of material nature: sattva, goodness; rajaha, passion; tamaha, ignorance. All of us in the entire universe. Now, one who is influenced by the mode of ignorance, he cannot distinguish right from wrong. On the contrary, he mistakes wrong for right and right for wrong. And one who is influenced by mode of passion, rajaha, rajoguna, he cannot distinguish between right and wrong. He just flows with it. His decisions are almost wrong all the times. And only one who is influenced by the sattvic mode of goodness, that person can know what is right and what is wrong, but then partially. And such class in Vedic civilization were known as Brahmanas, because they were predominantly in the sattvic mode of goodness. So the intelligence worked. That's why the Kshatriya kings had a board of Brahmanas for their guidance. But then that is also material nature, that is this goodness. Therefore their judgment, assessment, evaluation can go wrong sometimes. But one who has transcended the three modes, who is not affected by the three modes, his decision will be perfect. And they are called Vaishnava. That's called Nirguna platform, beyond the three modes. And that's why we say Vyasadeva, Shukadeva, Narada, they were on that platform. So they knew what is right and what is wrong. Therefore, we take the guidance from all the scriptures written by Vyasadeva.
So how to get out of the quandary now? Because, you know, the world is completely mixed up. We no longer live as in the categories that were defined by the Vedic people.
Yeah.
We today are a melting pot, you know, as you've probably seen on your travels.
Yes.
And principles, values, you know, have got very mixed up at times.
Yeah.
So how do we deal with that dilemma then, inside of what you've just said?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We have to gradually follow that sinless life. Then your mind gets purified. When the mind gets purified, it comes to Sattvic platform. In that you are able to live a decent life. There is no other way, no shortcut.
So then you become what was in the Vedic times called the Brahman.
Yes,
Okay.
minimum you have to come to that platform.
Right.
And then from there you come to Nirguna platform, Vaishnava platform.
So you can be somebody living in Africa.
Doesn't matter.
You know, but you could behave like a Brahman.
Exactly.
You could think like a. Okay.
Very well said.
So it's really a term used
you following this
for a certain
principles.
set of behaviors and thoughts.
Yes.
Okay, consciousness rather, a certain
Right.
type of consciousness. Okay, very good. And so coming on to the human emotional spectrum. Because I've been told countless times, you know, that anger, jealousy, resentment, bitterness, and all these things, you should not feel them, they're bad. You know, especially anger. My mom is constantly telling me,
Don't get
angry, you know. So, and yet at the same time, if you don't express the emotions that you authentically feel, they become suppressed and turn, you know, and then become harmful, perhaps disease even. So, aren't these emotions merely a part of the richness of the human emotional spectrum, and therefore just as valid as the positive, more pleasant emotions?
True. But the problem is, you yourself will realize when you become angry, the anger not only causes damage to the person at whom you are angry, it also causes distress to the person who is angry. Then what is the sense in expressing that emotion? So the way out is, here the Shastra suggests, that these emotions, they are there, part of your nature. You can give vent to it when you direct them against the atheists, the non-believers of God. Like Hanumanji, he burned down the whole Lanka because the atheistic Ravana and other assistants rebelled against God. So he showed his anger that way. Arjuna gave up his anger in fighting.
Swamiji, thank you for a very interesting conversation. Thank you for joining us today.
Hare
We've come
Krishna.
to the end of the program.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Gama